Hi, Jody Hardesty with Empowered Heart Connections. Many people discover as they're going through their relationship that there are phases or stages of a relationship that are either particularly fun or particularly complicated, depending on what stage that you're at and how you navigate those stages. So the first stage is obviously the one that people are most familiar with. It's the honeymoon stage where your dopamine is flying and your partner really couldn't be more perfect, and you overlook maybe some or sometimes a lot of red flags or potential problems that might cause pitfalls down the road because you're so in love and you're just having fun and your endorphins are flying and things are great and peaceful, and then you move along to another stage where you kind of recognize that your partner's kind of annoying and they have these traits that in the beginning may have been kind of cute and now are really annoying. And you have a lot more conflict and you're a little stressed out and you find that pretty much everything can be annoying from time to time because you haven't really figured out how to resolve those differences or those areas where you kind of have a different priority or a different motivation or a different focus level. So this stage can lead to high conflict depending on how well you are navigating those differences or those difficulties or those not so cute qualities that were kind of endearing to begin with, or we just completely ignored. Many of us just completely are oblivious to those red flags or even just the differences. As I mentioned in my video, with the exploring values and questioning people about what their interests are, what their goals are for the future, because I find many people after the honeymoon phase is over and they haven't really asked those deep questions end up in a pretty uncomfortable place. And this conflict phase or stage can be navigated, and many couples do or are able to navigate through this conflict stage because they usually have a solid enough foundation that they can build on that. Now, in other situations, maybe people rushed in way too fast, they don't know each other at all, and they really are completely on opposing sides of all kinds of issues or topics, and they really can't come to an agreement. So this conflict stage can lead to a separation, can lead to a conclusion that, what have we gotten ourselves into? And sometimes it takes quite a while for people to navigate that stage. Sometimes people stay together for a really long time in high conflict before they recognize that this just isn't going to work. So it's important, again, as I mentioned in the other videos, to make sure you're asking those questions before you really commit to a relationship, so you don't have to have as contentious or as painful of a conflict stage that most couples do, because most couples don't ask these questions. Most couples do rush in, and nobody's told most people, hey, find out these details before you get into a relationship. So you're not alone if you're one of those couples that's bypassed those areas of exploration and questioning. So once people get into this conflict stage where, those things that were ignored or not so annoying become really annoying, this is kind of where this conflict can become a transitional stage, right? So how do we navigate conflict, right? So once you go from the honeymoon stage to that conflict stage, and then how do we navigate this conflict, these differences? And it can really be an area of growth for couples. This is where I love working with couples and who are really ready to embrace, each other's differences and understand and learn to communicate, because when you do work through that conflict, it can get you to a place where when you have differences or you disagree, you can just talk about it. Go figure, right? When many of us stay stuck in the fight stage, in the conflict stage, in the high conflict where it's the I'm right and you're wrong kind of battle, and many couples will eventually grow apart if they stay stuck in that conflict stage where they're not able to get to the next place where they go, hey, I understand who you are. I agree to disagree about our differences, and I accept your flaws, and you accept mine. Because we all have flaws, There is a period of time in a relationship when we can recognize and make peace with each other's flaws, or we can continue to beat each other up with those flaws for the rest of our lives. But it's obviously a whole lot easier if we choose to accept them, if they're tolerable. I mean, obviously there are some flaws that are deal breakers. Like for most people, infidelity is kind of a deal breaker. If you continue to do that, then the relationship is going to grow apart. It's just kind of inevitable. Or even a continual financial betrayal where you're blowing thousands of dollars and you're keeping the family in debt and maybe being dishonest about that. Those things are, if they continue, are can be insurmountable conflict. So there's obviously some areas where there's deal breakers and people need to have boundaries about not just continuing to accept and tolerate those areas of conflict that are really life-altering and very damaging to someone's self-esteem and a relationship and safety and security and all of those details. So, but if there are just issues of particularly communication issues or even just preferences that are, for example, chore preferences, right? I've mentioned that before in videos. So if your partner doesn't like to come home to a dirty dishes in the sink and you work from home and you can make that work to get the dishes clean before they come home, like those are things that you can have discussions about and accommodate each other, versus maybe one person wants to have children and one person doesn't. Those things are obviously not negotiable. It's hard to do both of those. But once you find that you get past that conflict stage and you work into how do we navigate disagreements, it can be a whole lot more peaceful experience. And sometimes people fluctuate back and forth. They can get to kind of a little bit of a peaceful place when they've come to, hey, now we're learning how the other person gets triggered. We're learning how to communicate our needs in a more direct way. We're learning maybe some of our pitfalls like passive aggressiveness or flat out aggressiveness or yelling or not taking breaks. So we're learning some of those tools that are helping us navigate things, but maybe we backslide from time to time, right? But you're getting to a stage where those conflicts, the uncomfortable conflicts, are getting less and less in your relationship. So after that conflict stage into when you're more navigating how to resolve conflict and how to learn to like each other's in a different way. You're learning to navigate each other's differences and appreciate the differences rather than trying to fight against them. That can work you to one of the last stages where you've reached a peaceful resolution and you're able to have conflict in a peaceful way. You're able to disagree. You're able to say, hey, I don't like that. But you're also not having high conflict. You're not having a lot of stress and high pressure conversations. So those conversations about disagreements are fewer and further between. And when you do have disagreements, it's more peaceful, it's more amicable, and you're able to really embrace and appreciate your partner. And this is a really, really beautiful stage to be in for many people, that this is the long-lasting love stage where you've navigated all the difficult things, most of the difficult things, not that difficult things don't come up that are unexpected in life, but that you've navigated the most difficult part of having conflict in relationship and have figured out how to be with your person and how to connect in a loving and respectful way and how to honor your own feelings and take care of yourself and have an appropriate boundary with self and with your partner and are being respectful of each other and respectful of yourselves. And it's kind of like another honeymoon at this stage where you're really, those endorphins, those dopamine can come back again and be more fulfilling, because it's a lot different than that honeymoon stage in the beginning of your relationship when, it's like hot and heavy and everything's passionate, but you don't really know them all that well. And this later stage of kind of honeymoon revisited is such a deeper and more fulfilling place for couples to be, because they really do know each other inside and out. They really do know and appreciate what their differences are, what their similarities are, and they've learned to honor and respect each other in a way that is really profound. And exciting whenever people can get to that place. But it can be challenging to make it past that conflict to the kind of navigating conflict stage and into this kind of additional honeymoon stage, especially if, there's high conflict in life or there's other areas that are coming up, like maybe there's a job loss or, you have a child. And then that throws kind of a monkey wrench in things, and it creates all kinds of other issues that maybe you've already navigated in your own personal conflict and your own personal triggers. But then when you have children in the mix, it can add a whole other layer of things that we didn't know we were bothered by. So there's certainly things that can kind of change the trajectory or make us backslide back into that high conflict stage in a relationship. But again, I have found working with couples, the more that we are able to, again, find that common ground and find a way to say what we need in a respectful and loving way and work through disagreements with a collaborative goal in mind, with I want to know what you're feeling and experiencing, and I want to get on the same page, rather than the I'm right and you're wrong and you're a duty head. Those are not as helpful. So if you're collaborating in order to enhance the relationship and enhance the connection, then it's a whole lot easier to navigate through those conflicts. And it can be, again, particularly challenging, especially when those kids come along and try to divide and conquer with their ways that they do. And they can also bring, obviously, a lot of joy, too. But navigating that can be another challenge. So there's all kinds of elements that can make this conflict stage more challenging, but it is doable to get through that conflict stage, to get to that more navigating conflict, and then ultimately to get to that lovely revisiting honeymoon stage where it's just that deep, meaningful connection that couples can share, that they have an experience together that nobody else in their lives they can connect with in that way. It's just such a deep connection. So I hope that you all find that, if that's what you're looking for, that loving connection with that deep, intimate feeling of love and safety and security. And I hope you continue, if those of you who are still dating, to look for those tools that we talked about in the last video with, those questions about what your values are, what your goals are, what your future hopes are, what your financial planning is. All of those things to help you get through that conflict stage much more quickly, because there's a whole lot less conflict whenever you already know what you're getting into. So keep that in mind. And again, those of you who are in a relationship and you maybe skip this phase, which most people do, it is never too late to explore those things. And I appreciate those of you who make comments about the videos, and so touched by the way that you're sharing your own experience, and that these videos have been helpful for you. So I so appreciate that you all are doing that, and hope you all continue to benefit from these videos and get things out of it. And I appreciate you all watching, and I hope this has been helpful.